Implementation was the next step in the evolution of the Complete Streets movement in New Jersey. Typically, after a policy was adopted, a community would seek out or develop planning and design documents, checklists, and supportive policies, including area plans, additions to master plans, or specific Complete Streets implementation plans. NJDOT and Complete Streets stakeholders offered both technical assistance and funding incentives to lay the supportive framework for implementation.
DOT has helped facilitate the implementation of Complete Streets across the state through trainings, but also through funding for individual projects, whether it's from county and municipal aid or federal programs like Safe Routes to School and transportation alternatives. New Jersey DOT gives out a lot of grant money for projects that are definitely Complete Streets projects.
Historically, that funding has often been used for resurfacing streets, and it still is, but part of what our message has been, especially since that funding doubled a few years ago, has been that that money can be used for pedestrian-friendly projects, for bicycle lanes. There's many bike and pedestrian-friendly projects that that funding can be used for. And that's important because that's a substantial amount of funding that is available to just about every community.
Another thing we do is provide resources. We have the Complete Streets Design Guide, but we also created, with the help of our strong network of advocates in New Jersey, the Complete Streets Model Policy and Guide, Complete and Green Streets Model Policy and Guide. And towns are using that to build their own policies, to implement their policies, and to make them stronger.
NJDOT supported the transition to implementation by developing and providing Complete Streets design guidance and implementation training, with hundreds of people having attended workshops.
The trainings are statewide on all sorts of level of very beginning kind of knowledge for Complete Streets to the advanced kind of Complete Streets implementation. We do technical assistance. So whether they're a report or just answering a help desk phone call on occasion to help people answer those questions, big and small, about implementing Complete Streets. And finally, we also, of course, do research at Rutgers University on how best to implement Complete Streets, how to address equity when we do want to implement Complete Streets, how to bring in health data and information. So it's very much a three-pronged approach of education, technical assistance, and research.
Implementing Complete Streets was the natural progression of the movement after the strong policy and assistance framework had been laid. NJDOT published the Complete and Green Streets for All Model Policy and Guide in 2019 as a resource for towns and counties. It included checklists for policy implementation. Communities across the state who had adopted policies started to both plan for and build Complete Streets. Projects came in a variety of designs, but ultimately fulfilled the vision of providing streets that were planned for all users and that were contextually appropriate. Pedestrian facilities, bicycle accommodations, stormwater management, and placemaking have started to fulfill the vision of the movement, with streets built for people, not just cars.
Complete Streets is really a foundation upon which many other newer, more current buzzword activities such as Green Streets, such as Towards Zero Death or Vision Zero are built.
The implementation of Complete Streets is well underway and has begun to change how our roadways look and feel. Communities realize that our streets can be designed for people. The hope and promise of Complete Streets continues to grow in New Jersey.
If Da Vinci were alive and designing streets, his streets would be beautiful and functional. To me, that's Complete Streets.
Good afternoon. Moving on to one of the last sessions this afternoon, I'm pleased to welcome you to the 6th Complete Streets Summit. My name is Jeevanjot Singh, and I'm the Section Chief of Safety Programs Management for New Jersey DOT's Bureau of Safety, bicycle, and pedestrian programs. I oversee the administration and management of the Highway Safety Improvement Program, reviewing the crashes for all state roads, field visits, countermeasures review, and developing problem statements to initiate safety projects where they are needed. This includes intersections, corridors, and pedestrian and bicycle safety projects. I also manage the safety management systems, which is one of the asset management systems in the department. The safety management systems include the pedestrian safety management system and the bicycle screening list as well. And I firmly believe that safety and complete streets go hand in hand, and achieving both of these is a journey, not a destination. In this session today, which is titled Turn Policy into Action, Complete and Green Streets Resources and Local Lessons Learned, you will hear about what resources are available to you to transform your complete streets policy into a reality. So before we get started, please note that this session is being recorded, and after the summit, the recordings of this and all other sessions will be made available online. I hope you enjoy this session and join us afterwards for our summit wrap up and call to action at 4 p.m. today. And with that said, I will now turn it over to our moderator, Stephen Wong. Steve, it's all yours now.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Steve Wong from Schwartz. I'm a principal and the general manager of our New Jersey office. And I've been working with the state, counties, and municipalities over the past decade to advance complete streets. Hopefully you've been watching all the sessions today, and if so, you've heard about the history of complete streets and some of the great success stories and some of the things that have worked throughout the state. And this session will help provide you with some information and ideas on how your town can move from having just a policy towards implementation. We have a great lineup of speakers today, starting with Candace Perry. She is the director of the Office of Environmental Justice at the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. And she has the important role of informing, advising all state departments and agencies on how to incorporate environmental justice and equity into their policies, programs, and their core functions. And she'll be talking today about implementing complete and green streets in overburdened communities. Following Candace, we have Pete Kramer, a senior planner with Michael Baker, who's been doing this for 30 some odd years, focusing on multimodal transportation systems, safety, and has been a driving force in developing complete streets for municipalities throughout the state. And he's going to be talking about some of the trainings, complete streets trainings, and ADA and equity resources and guidance that are available to municipalities. Then we have Keith Hamus. He's a principal planner at NJTPA, the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority, where he specializes in complete streets, pedestrian bicycle safety, and oversees the implementation of regional planning programs. And for over 10 years, he's been working to improve safety and multimodal connectivity in New Jersey. Excuse me. He'll be discussing one of the most effective ways to gain support for complete projects and implement community engagement in those types of projects. It's a good presentation. Kyle Scala, he's a project manager with NJDOT Local Aid and Economic Development, and Kyle's going to be talking about some of the programs that are available to help fund these projects. So again, someone that you definitely want to pay attention to. He's the money man. And finally, we have Ann Heasley from Sustainable New Jersey. Ann's been working to develop policies and programs that help local governments to implement sustainable actions within New Jersey. She has experience and expertise in land conservation, planning, design, funding strategies, all in an effort to advance complete and green streets throughout the state. So with that, I will turn it over to Candace for the first presenter. Candace?
Great, thank you, Stephen. All right, so hi everyone, I am Candace Perry. I am the Director for the Office of Environmental Justice at the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. I'm so excited to be here to speak today because I do believe that there is great synergy between the missions for DEP and DOT, especially on the topic of complete and green streets. So my talk is going to be about the nexus between complete and green streets and environmental justice. So during my talk today, I will frame for you what environmental justice is. I'm going to break down some commonly used and misused terminology so that we're all coming from a similar place of understanding. And then I'll share a practical tool with you that you can explore, that you can use to explore the connection between environmental justice and complete and green streets in your community. But first, some background. So next slide. So let's look at exactly what environmental justice is. We use EPA's definition, which says that environmental justice is the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, in the development, implementation, enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. This goal can only be achieved when everyone enjoys the same degree of protection from environmental and health hazards and equal access to the decision-making processes in the places where they live, work, and play. Environmental justice recognizes that the disproportionate environmental burdens are endured by poor communities and communities of color. And New Jersey is certainly no exception, seeing disparities in air quality, facility siting, as well as climate change impacts such as flooding. So next slide. Let's get into some terminology and really look at the distinct differences between equality, equity, and justice so we're all on the same page. Next slide. So here's an example for you. Let's assume that we have community A and community B. Community A is more well off, they have more flexible income, whereas community B is more poor, they have less flexible income, but both communities are hungry. Okay, and so in the top upper right-hand corner, let's assume that we have a nonprofit who's come up with this clever idea to address both communities' hunger issues by producing loaves of bread. So click once for me. What equality would look like is if, regardless of flexible income between the two communities, you give both communities the same number of loaves of bread. So both get 2 loaves of bread. Okay, now next slide. Let's look at what an equitable approach would look like. Same nonprofit who's come up with a solution to produce bread, but now instead you have community B is going to get 3 loaves of bread, while community A is going to get only 1 loaf of bread, with the understanding that community A has more flexible income to provide for themselves in terms of their hunger issues. Next slide. But let's look at what a justice approach would look like. Same 2 communities, same 2 assumptions about their income, but instead, maybe the nonprofit is still going to keep their loaves of bread kind of industry in their back pocket. But what justice would look like is if we're looking at systemic, structural root causes of why those communities are experiencing hunger and why community B doesn't have enough flexible income to overcome their hunger issues. So we're going to look at solutions like alleviating poverty, increasing access to education, and providing jobs. And so maybe the nonprofit kind of takes up a new and expands their mission statement to include uprooting some of the structural systemic issues that are causing hunger issues in both communities. Next slide. Okay, so now that we've established a brief baseline understanding for some important terminology, let's dive into a foundational piece of DEP's strategy to further environmental justice. The department is fortunate to have the opportunity to implement the nation's first environmental justice law. And I won't go into detail about the law and its mechanics, but what I do want to do is provide an overview of its intent because it provides further background and orientation onto what environmental justice is. So the legislature, through the law, finds and declares that all New Jersey residents, regardless of income, race, ethnicity, color, or national origin, have a right to live, work, and recreate in a clean and healthy environment. Historically, New Jersey's low-income communities and communities of color have been subject to a disproportionately high number of environmental and public health stressors, including pollution from numerous industrial, commercial, and governmental facilities located in those communities. The legacy of citing sources of pollution in overburdened communities continues to pose a threat to the health, well-being, and economic success of the state's most vulnerable residents, and that it is well past time for the state to correct those historic injustices. Next slide. The legislature also finds and declares that no community should bear a disproportionate share of the adverse environmental and public health consequences that accompany the state's economic growth. The state's overburdened communities must have a meaningful opportunity to participate in any decision to allow facilities which, by the nature of their activity, have the potential to increase environmental and public health stressors. And lastly, it is in the public interest of the state, where appropriate, to limit the future placement and expansion of such facilities in overburdened communities. Next slide. So I'm using this terminology, overburdened communities, a lot. Let me explain for you what we mean by that. An overburdened community is defined at the census block group level as one that meets any of the three following criteria, those being 35% of households are low income, or 40% of households are minority, or 40% of households have limited English proficiency. The focus here being on the word "or," which generates the most expansive protections and ensures that no communities are left out. And block groups are the smallest geographic unit that the census uses to publish data. Next slide. So now, how do you determine where overburdened communities are? If you go to DEP's website, the URL is on the screen, and then click on overburdened communities, there are a few tools and resources you'll find. You can click again, notably our interactive mapping tool, which I want to spend a little bit of time walking you through. Next slide. So once you click on the mapping tool, this is the window that you'll see next. And in the upper left-hand corner, you can see a search box that works like Google Maps. So you can type in an address or a municipality, like the example shows, we've put in Trenton. So on the map, you can see various color coding that corresponds to the definition of overburdened communities. So the areas in green show minority block groups, blue is low income and minority, and so forth. You can see that blue and green overburdened communities make up just about the entirety of the city of Trenton. And some municipalities, though, there may only be a handful of overburdened communities. Next slide. So the DEP has identified overburdened communities at the census block group level in more than 330 of our 565 municipalities. And you can download PDF maps of each of those 330 plus municipalities from off of our website. So that was just a brief overview of how the tool works. I really do encourage you to click around and play with it, because there's so much more that you can do with the tool. But it's really important for me to share this with this audience as advocates for complete streets and active transportation, because you can use this tool to think about where overburdened communities are in your municipality, and then use that information to plan and implement complete and green streets to incorporate justice. Next slide. But let's pause for just a quick minute so I can tell you about a key distinction between the term overburdened community and environmental justice community. So looking at the graphic in blue is where it says community of concern. You can think of that as your overburdened community. We know that Black and brown and low income communities, or overburdened communities, experience a disproportionate number of environmental and public health stressors. That is your circle in brown. We can think of this for now as environmental pollution, but the environmental justice law breaks it down and defines that in way more detail. But we also know that Black and brown and low income communities also experience a disproportionate absence of environmental and public health benefits like trails and greenways. So that will be your circle in green. So the nexus of all three is what makes an environmental justice community. So you can think all EJ communities are overburdened communities. However, not all overburdened communities are EJ communities. Next slide. So now that we've gone through some foundational terminology, we're all on the same page, I want to spend some time next talking about the nexus between racism and environmental pollution, and kind of walk you through that through the lens of redlining. So redlining is a historical racist planning process that dates back to the 1930s, where appraisers mapped cities and assigned grades to neighborhoods on the basis of race. So Black and immigrant neighborhoods were deemed undesirable, marked by yellow or red lines, which designated those neighborhoods as declining or as hazardous. Because these neighborhoods were deemed hazardous, red line neighborhoods experienced less investment over time, and so it's not a coincidence that they also have more hard surfaces like concrete and less green space, more highways and truck traffic that run through those residential neighborhoods, which diminish tree canopy and therefore make those neighborhoods hotter and they flood more often. So next slide. I've pulled for you a finding from a study from Bloomberg, which uses redlining data from First Street Foundation, which is a nonprofit, that shows historically redlined neighborhoods suffer a far higher risk of flooding today compared to non-redlined areas. So this map is a map of New York, where you can see the redlined areas are overlapped with where flood risk occurs, the areas in blue. And you can see the red areas and the blue areas match up. Next slide. So again, from Bloomberg, this chart shows the degree to which green line areas or desirable neighborhoods face high flood risk as compared to red line areas. And you can see that there are significant disparities. And according to the chart, you can look at what the disparities are for the city of Newark. Next slide. So what are some solutions? Because we know that environmental justice communities and red line communities experience hotter temperatures and that they are more likely to flood, it is imperative that the transportation planners and complete street advocates like yourselves explore solutions that provide relief and justice to those communities. And one way to do that is through complete and green streets. So a green street
I'm
is
sorry, we're running out of time.
Okay, let me just wrap up to the next slide. A few of the speakers will talk in more detail about green streets, but I just want to let you know that there is a BMP manual that DEP has where you can learn how to design specific practices for green infrastructure. And then next slide, I just want to close by saying that we know that climate change is an ever-present issue and that they affect all of us, but they don't affect us equally. So that is something to keep in mind and something that complete and green streets can address. And so next slide, that's all that I have for you today, and I will pass it over to Pete Kramer. Thanks so much for your time.
Okay, all right. So I don't see my video up, but I'll get started. So next slide, please. Go to the next slide. So what I'm going to talk to you about is what we're doing related to training for complete streets. Hopefully many of you listening today have participated in our training programs over the last 10, 12 years, I guess going back to 2010, 12 years. Or if you have not, you will participate in the future. I encourage your colleagues to do so also. So right now we have a number of different things going on related to updating that training. We're updating the Complete Streets training curriculum. And I'll get into detail on that in a little while. We're also tasked to support the New Jersey, this is always hard to say, Strategic Highway Safety Plan with improved design resources. And these two efforts are really kind of tied in together. We need to make sure that what we're teaching is what people need to know, what the gaps in the knowledge base is, and respond to that appropriately. We also are informally providing some advice and research on updates to New Jersey's Complete Streets policy, because everything really filters down from that. And in the people that we're talking to, interviewing, researching, we're assembling updates to New Jersey's Complete Streets Design Guide. Next slide. So what we've learned is that the need for training is continuous. The state of the practice always changes. We have new guides coming out. We have new information coming out. There's new best practices models. There's always a better way to do everything. And so we always need to go back and update not just our constituents, but ourselves as well. Confusion and misunderstandings are continuous. Liability is one of the worst offenders here. It's always brought up as a reason not to do things. And most people's understanding of liability is really 180 degrees opposite of the reality. People we've talked to have expressed a high level interest in training. So one of the benefits of us interviewing practitioners, so we've been talking to planners, engineers, decision makers, and advocates as well to find out the interest in training. So we've already assembled a nice group of counties, municipalities, and groups that are interested in getting this information. Everybody also needs support with writing new policies. Obviously, the Complete Plus Green is out there. It's a great resource, but it's a lot of information. It's a lot to do. So going to Leanne's group, her students, going to the TMAs, going to the Complete Streets Working Group are always good advice in terms of getting assistance with that. You know, in the old days, and we did this in my town in Lawrenceville, we took an old policy, I think Montclair's, we adapted it. It was 1 or 2 pages and we went with that. Today, that's not enough. People really need a lot of assistance in crafting a good policy because there's really a significant difference in a policy that's just a piece of paper and something that actually works. Overall, the guides have been well received, but use of the guides is mixed. So for example, people really like the Complete Plus Green and they really like the Complete Streets Design Guide, but they often use it almost sort of like a pattern book of things that could be done and maybe not using it in the way it was intended. And I think maybe what we need to do is sort of revise the way those materials are organized and presented. Next slide. Overall, you know, training does lead to better policies, more adoptions. As I said, we always need to talk about liability. We have to go out to our partners to find out who needs the training and get out to them. People have over the years customized the materials for their local use, and that's always helpful. People want to see success stories that look like New Jersey, that look like their town, that look like their streets. So any suggestions that people have for that, photos that are being assembled are helpful. So next slide. There's also a lot of confusion. So what do these things mean, for example, to a traffic engineer? What is equity in terms of signing and striping, designing a street, inclusion, sustainability? There's different understandings really of even of green infrastructure, of what kind of benefits can be gotten out of that. So we need to just focus on what these terms mean to the different stakeholders, because everybody comes at it differently, and we need to have a sort of broad base in the way we talk to people so that we're speaking their language regardless of what expertise or what subject matter expertise or responsibilities they have. Next slide. The training will talk about the typical things that we've talked about before. What are complete streets? Why? What are the problems of not doing complete streets? What are the benefits of complete streets? What we've learned with complete and green is that we can't stop telling people how to write and adopt a policy. There's also a bit of confusion about what's the difference between a complete streets policy, a complete streets resolution, and an ordinance. And I don't think there's a definitive answer to that yet. There's actually a lot of disagreement on that. I'll talk a little bit about the status of policy implementation or policy adoption. Implementation means a lot of things to a lot of people, and we'll be getting into that in the materials. We typically try to include a hands-on exercise. We've done a number of walking tours. We did one in Elizabeth 4 years ago, which was incredibly helpful to look at a really up-to-date, well-designed intersection, and then walk down the street and see something that was totally lacking in accommodation. So that alone is almost more beneficial in terms of teaching people than 3 hours of a slideshow. Next slide. Over the years, you might have seen some of these going back right in the middle there in 2010. I believe Bettina Zimney, Mike Dannemiller, Laura Torchio started with the Complete Streets in New Jersey materials. There were several different versions of that, and we've adapted and expanded that over the years. And hopefully some of you have seen these materials and used them yourselves. So next. We also always try to include this slide that anything that's in the Complete Streets Design Guide or in our training is completely consistent with all of the state-of-the-art practice and guidance, all the regulations that we have to comply with, and especially all the things that engineers, traffic engineers, roadway engineers have to follow. Not just AASHTO and MUTCD, but pushing the envelope with the NACTO guides. And some of the cities and states have great guides themselves, but nothing in our materials is inconsistent or in violation of any of the industry-wide or national practices and standards that we have to follow. Next slide. Here's the state of the policy adoption in New Jersey. 8 counties, and this is, we just recently updated, 8 counties have policies and 169 municipalities. That's about 30% of our municipalities, but it's a little over half of our population. And in terms of our counties, it's really the most densely populated, heavily populated counties that have policies. But you can see there's a lot of gaps, the Northwest and down at the shore, large parts of Burlington, Ocean counties. So it tells us that we also need to find ways to speak to people that don't have dense populations in high density and high traffic situations, that they still can benefit from complete streets. So we continually need to evolve our materials to cater to the needs of everybody in New Jersey. Next. And here's, one of the lessons is that New Jersey's policy was adopted in 2010. Since then, as I said, this is how we've gotten to that 168 or 69, whatever it was. Every time we go out, we had heavy training sessions in 2012, 13, 14, some stuff again in the late teens, but the last 2 years, we haven't had many policy adoptions. So every time we go out with our training, we get a lot of policy adoptions. And that's one of the reasons why I've been undertaking this research and updating the materials. Next slide. Here, let's see if the animation comes up. You can see this is an animated version of the national pace of adoption. Overall, there are over 1,500 policies adopted in the country. New Jersey has less than 3% of the population, but almost 12% of the policies. Part of that is the fact that we have so many municipalities, but you'll see by the end of the animation that we're really well covered in terms of how we compare to other states. Next slide. So there'll be 3 modules, starting with the what, why, and what are the benefits of writing a policy and doing a complete streets approach. Second module is focused on implementation, developing projects. And the third is a design overview. And this is how we've done it in the past. We also, as I said, we always provide the opportunity to customize to local issues and content. And try to provide opportunities for hands-on exercises and interaction with our participants. Next slide. The format has always been as a 1.5-day session. What we're going to do now is go to this 3-module format. It can be done all at once or as 3 standalone modules. We've always gone 2 sites, but obviously in the last couple of years that has changed. So we're going to make it both virtual and in person. The slides always include notes for speakers' notes and the opportunity, as I said, to customize it. Each module is, 60 to 75 minutes. And we've always done well when we work with partners to schedule, identify places to give training and help them, have them help us with promoting the training. Next slide.
Hey, Pete, you need to wrap up.
Okay, I think I'm just about done. These are some of the partners we've worked with in the past. Sustainable Jersey, DOT, all 3 MPOs, etc. The more people that we have to help us, the better. And we're always looking for new speakers. We've had a small group of us over the years that have done the training. So if anybody is interested in training, knows somebody that needs a training, or knows of a speaker, let us know, and we'll get with them. Thanks a lot, Steve. So next we go over to Keith.
Hi, good afternoon, and thank you for the invitation to be on this panel and for the opportunity to share some project work that the NJTPA has done with Planning for Emerging Centers program. This is a program that supports municipalities in advancing regional sustainability planning principles at the local level. The Borough of Keyport applied for the program after updating its master plan in 2017, and thereby seeing a lot of public concerns around travel safety, especially for walking and cycling and kids getting to and from school. I'll point out this is a competitive program, so the NJTPA reviewed multiple applications and selected Keyport, opened a public bid, and brought FHI on board as lead consultant, along with street plans to assist with the demonstration project. Next slide, please. The goals here, well, actually, before I continue, just let me make some quick acknowledgements. I want to thank the Keyport Borough leadership for dedicated teamwork throughout the project. Even with the technical assistance that we provide, it requires a lot of coordinated action, and that takes place during evening meetings. I also want to thank Monmouth County Planning and Engineering for their teamwork and helping to really authorize and coordinate a municipal demonstration project on a county roadway. And that was an important piece of the puzzle. And finally, thanks to FHI consultant team for helping with the development of a comprehensive set of products for Keyport, and also for guiding design and implementation of the demonstration project. So before I get into the demonstration project itself, I just want to give you a quick overview. The primary goal of the study was to develop a complete streets policy and implementation plan, along with supporting ordinances to help formalize how the borough can integrate complete streets designs into their future municipal transportation planning and land use decisions. The study process had a really strong public engagement element, and we got in touch with and spoke with a variety of experts, state, local, municipal, county, a lot of residents and community members, all of that to help foster a consensus and support for the context-sensitive nature of complete streets. Next slide, please. Okay, so perhaps you've all heard some version of the story and you're all still living it at this very moment. COVID forced a shift to all virtual format for public outreach and stakeholder outreach across the board. And as it turned out, this was not some kind of impassable barrier, but really more of an opportunity to try new approaches for outreach. So the project team pivoted and developed a website with a video game format to collect public input. And there was a lot of good input on a variety of topics. Participants were able to sign in as a player and gain points through participating in different activities, like voting on design preferences for different types of roadways. And the advantage here was really that players could participate at any convenient time on their own terms and kind of take time to think about how they want to communicate their concerns, rather than maybe trying to fit a public meeting into their busy schedules and then sort of getting drowned out by a room full of people. Next slide, please. Just a couple of activities to highlight. Participants had a chance to rate the streets and intersections for biking and walking on an interactive map. And they could add comments and likes and really document their feedback in a meaningful way and gain points for the more feedback that they provide. Next slide, please. Participants also had a chance to weigh in on specific locations, so they could review different complete streets design options or typologies for specific roadways through a visioning exercise. And overall, it found overwhelming support for complete streets elements and a preference to kind of accommodate the balance of needs between bicycles and pedestrians, stormwater management, and retaining parking as well. So this was the virtual outreach performed very well, resulted in over 250 surveys and more than 100 online workshop participants that contributed over 800 points of feedback. Next slide, please. I think more importantly, the outreach results directly informed the recommendations for the plan. So that included, for example, a proposed bicycle network, one-way pair options proposed for addressing school area safety, and for a vision for how to manage extra width on certain roadways, such as Maple Place, which was the demonstration project location. So next slide, please. So I'll just talk through a few photos that follow. Here, the demonstration project ended up being a sort of a pinnacle for the public outreach and engagement. The selected location that you see in the yellow box here is the Henry Hudson Trail crossing on Maple Place. And you can see that the trail runs diagonally across the grid and creates an irregular kind of crossing. So the site was a clear standout for selecting as a demonstration project, and gave an opportunity to address a safety need for walking and biking, obviously, with the trail, and a high-profile location, potential to attract more walkers and cyclists, and have a buildable design as light, quick, cheap, temporary. Next slide, please. So here you can see there's a combination of curb bump outs and high visibility crosswalks to help shorten the crossing distances and effectively narrow the lanes for traffic calming. There was also a two-way bike lane segment at the south side of the intersection to encourage cyclists to cross safely and confidently at right angles rather than sort of the uncertain and unpredictable patterns that were occurring there before. We also used very temporary materials such as plastic delineators and tempera paint, which washes away very easily. Next slide, please. Now, implementing the project did have some challenges, which made it made the success even more rewarding and a valuable educational experience. One of the challenges was that Maple Place is a county road, and that necessitated a lot of coordination with county planners and engineers to address their concerns and meet their standards. Pete talked about pushing the design envelope, right? And I think that's what we did here, kind of push the envelope as far as county engineering standards with more of a NACDO-based design for on-road complete streets. And you know, all the same, we worked together, made some adjustments and reached consensus through multiple rounds of review, and ultimately had a design that offered safety benefit, and it was simple and highly functional and consistent with the overall vision for Keyport. Next slide, please. The demonstration project took place on the weekend of May 14th, and included an opportunity for trail users to scan a quick QR code and comment on the installation. Next slide. And the project wrapped up in July. We left Keyport with a set of documents that they can use to adopt and incorporate into their planning practices. If it does get adopted as an ordinance or master plan component, it can help compel and guide the future improvements to incorporate complete streets designs. In addition to comprehensive design and implementation guides, there is also a quick build guide that helps facilitate future demonstration project installations at other places in the borough. There's also a short video clip, I believe. Next slide. And I just wanted to show this to demonstrate that vehicles and cyclists were able to navigate the intersection pretty harmoniously, and you can kind of see there that some of the vehicles are slowing as they approach the high visibility intersection treatments. So it looks like it accomplished what we aim to do in demonstrating the benefits of complete streets. The next slide. So that's more or less all I have. I wanted to just point out that the final products for the Complete Streets implementation plan and policy are available on the NJTPA website, njtpa.org. And I'll thank you again, and pass the mic over to Kyle now.
Thank you. All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kyle Scala, and I work with the Division of Local Aid and Economic Development at NJDOT, and I'm here to talk to you about the funding opportunities that we, local aid, have to offer to implement your complete street policies. Slide. But first, who are we? If you've never had a grant through our office, you may not know what we do or that we even exist. In short, local aid provides both state and federal grants to municipalities and counties to support local multimodal their multimodal transportation needs. It's vague and brief, but on the next slide, I have a fun, being a loose term video to show you who we are.
The Division of Local Aid and Economic Development is a division within NJDOT. NJDOT's Planning, Multimodal, and Grants Administration under the leadership of Assistant Commissioner Michael Russo. The division serves the state's 21 counties and 565 municipalities. The division currently administers a variety of programs to fund diverse projects. The state aid grant programs yield almost 900 grant applications annually and result in over $430 million awarded to municipalities and counties. The Transportation Trust Fund is the source of 75% of local aid funds. Local aid grants help the department meet its mission to enhance safety and keep the local roads and bridges in a state of good repair. Specific grant programs such as the Local Freight Impact Fund also help spur economic growth throughout the state. The Transit Village and Safe Streets to Transit programs help to enhance the access for pedestrians and bicyclists to transit service. The Transit Village program operates in partnership with NJDOT's statewide planning division and New Jersey Transit. Local aid staff perform a variety of tasks including managing the grant application process, recommending grants, and overseeing the project development. Delivering a local project also requires collaboration with DOT subject matter experts and with the 3 metropolitan planning organizations. The division staff also assists the Infrastructure Bank to deliver local projects funded by the bank. Local aid is a full-service division. We provide technical assistance for the system for administering grants electronically and the project management and reporting system. We use the Local Aid Resource Center and social media as a central hub to provide information to the LPAs and provide training to aid municipal and county staff in the successful delivery of federal and state-funded projects. The Division of Local Aid is in a unique position to impact New Jersey's communities as it directs the department's investments to main streets, paths leading to schools, trails, transit facilities, and other areas that enhance the quality of life for New Jersey's residents and visitors.
Next slide, please.
The division.
All right, so there's some very important information and numbers that were thrown out during the video after that nice introduction of local aid. The first is that local aid gives out over $500 million annually in our state and federal aid programs. So each year, about 600 new projects are given out through our offices. There are a variety of different programs that local aid has to offer to fund a diverse set of projects. On our slide right here, it shows you all our state aid programs that we have. Some of these are more beneficial for implementing your complete streets policy, and I'll go through those like the municipal aid, the county aid, our bikeway. And there's a way that local aid is able to be in a position to impact all New Jersey's communities. There's also at the end of the video that I'll punctuate at the end of this presentation, our resource center and where you can get all the information I'll be talking about today and even a lot more. Slide, please. Our biggest program that we have is our municipal aid program in terms of the amount of grants that we give out. All municipalities in the state are eligible to apply in this competitive grant. Municipalities are competitive, their applications are competitive with each other within their municipality, so it's not statewide, it's only within their county. There's 7 types of improvements that are allowable under this program. The 3 that I've broken out, where obviously are the bikeways and pedestrian safety, to provide bike lanes, the missing links to a school or a downtown center for your complete street policy. I also included roadway preservation, which is a little bit of an outlier. There's already 94% of our applications that are submitted each year. However, what we like to highlight and tell applicants is that you don't have to, if you're going to do a roadway resurfacing, you combine the types of improvements that we offer through our municipal aid program to make a more comprehensive, complete project. So if you're resurfacing a roadway, why don't you focus on or taking it a step further and striping it for bike lanes or including sidewalks and those missing links, just to make that a complete project. Slide. County aid is our other big funding source. All 21 counties received this a grant in this non-competitive program. It's very similar in municipal aid in terms of the types of categories. I'm not going to go over those, but there is a larger amount of funds that the counties can work with, and they have a longer time to complete their projects. They have 36 months. So there's planning that can be involved to, like the municipal aid, a more complete project of implementing bike lanes and sidewalks and completing the complete streets policies. Slide. Our next three grants are smaller than our previous two. Our first being Safe Streets to Transit. $1 million is set aside for this program, which is set to provide pedestrian safety in and around transit facilities. So there are some eligibility requirements to apply for this grant. Both municipalities and counties are eligible. And like I said, this is more focused for pedestrians and new sidewalks, curb ramps, pedestrian signals, a great way to supplement funding for a larger project or, as a pedestrian project on its own. Slide. Our bikeway program has a primary objective of constructing new bikeway miles that are physically separated from motorized vehicles. Similar to Safe Streets to Transit, both municipalities and counties are eligible to apply. It is a great way for a local public agency to expand their bicycle network, or to start and create a new form of a new transportation alternatives within their town. Slide. Our smallest scope state-funded program will be a transit village, because you must have a transit village designation before applying. So there's only so many in the state that can apply, but the intent of this program is to grow the area surrounding a transit village by including bikeways and pedestrian facilities. We always stress for any of those transit villages that are capable, that can apply, as we usually see less than half of those eligible ever applying on a yearly basis. I do want to highlight for all the state funded programs that are competitive, so everyone but the county aid, that we do have an incentive to adopt a complete streets policy for the local public agency. During the application rating process, those agencies that do have an adapted policy receive additional points in their final rating that could give them a slight advantage in receiving funds, especially in these smaller $1 million programs where we may only see like 4 to 5 grants being given out. Typically, every year we see about 150, 175 of the grants given out go to complete street policy holders. Slide, please. For our federally funded programs, we do have our Safe Routes to School, which enables and encourages children to bike or walk to school. The types of improvements are bike lanes, new upgraded sidewalks, ADA compliant curb ramps, new and upgraded intersections is the focus for this program. There are eligibility requirements because this is federally funded, so you do have to abide by both state and federal rules and regulations. Slide. Our Transportation Alternatives Program is our other federally funded program, which is used to fund non-traditional surface transportation projects, both focusing, the two activities are eligible, both focus on pedestrian, bicyclists, and non-motorized forms of transportation, both for on and off-road trail facilities, and for the conversion of abandoned railroad corridors to make that missing link between, bike trails. Our Design Assistance Program, I included this, is a program that we have to assist municipalities and counties to provide funding for the design of their project. If you're selected, you can get design funds through a an already selected pool of consultants that we have selected and gone through the federal process. It shortens the amount of time for you to complete the project and also get that phase funded. So you get the preliminary engineering, final design, and all of construction funded. Slide. And last, I want to, before I say my thank you, at the bottom of the screen, or underneath that is the information for our resource center. This site not only provides the information that I presented here in more detail, but also has upcoming trainings and opportunities, training opportunities, more about our project management and reporting system that we're moving towards, and direct contact through a hotline or email contact. So even the most general or more in-depth question that you may have about a project or one of our programs, you can always reach out. It also has our social media handles, so you can get posts on upcoming deadlines and trainings. With that, thank you, and I would like to pass this on to Anne.
Thanks, Kyle. So it's congratulations, I think, need to be given to DOT and to the Bike and Ped Resource Center for a great summit. I'm really excited to be here. I'm Ann Heasley, and I'm a program manager for policy and planning at Sustainable Jersey. And just going to give you some additional ideas on how to put in place some of the great things that were talked about today in terms of policies or projects. Next slide. So just a little bit about Sustainable Jersey. We're a nonprofit organization that provides tools and training and financial incentives to municipalities to help them advance sustainability. And next slide. You know, we're a voluntary program, but since we started in 2009, 81% of New Jersey municipalities are participating at some level, and that encompasses 89% of the state's population. Next slide. So in 2017, we initiated an analysis to explore if our program was really upholding one integral piece of a sustainable future, and that was really how are we addressing social equity. And so we screened all of our actions, and a Sustainable Jersey action is really the tool or the guidance that is found on our website that municipalities use to undertake a sustainable action, and then they submit information to verify that they've done that. So that's how we certify them in our program based on those actions. So we did an analysis of the actions and their impact on equity, and we came up with some recommendations about how to advance them. So I'll talk about that a little more and I talk about one of our actions, but I do want to just point out that there is a handout for this session, and it has a lot of links to the resources that I'm going to talk about today, and it also gives you a link to our equity report, which is really interesting if you want to look at how and who is involved in our program. Next slide. So we've heard a lot about Complete Streets policies and the evolution of them, and in January of 2021 we retired 2 of our Complete Streets actions and replaced them with 2 new ones. One is an aptly named Complete and Green Streets for All policy action, and then also a bike and pedestrian improvement action. Next slide. So the Complete and Green Streets for All policy action takes the DOT model policy and creates 3 different tiers: a good, better, and best policy. And it's based on adopting the policy through resolution, but we do have guidance if you want to go the next step and get additional points for adopting the policy as an ordinance. And basically the point structure rewards more activities or more commitment to implementation, because we know that's a best practice. And this new action does follow the language of the state guide in terms of including health and equity and green streets for each of the tiers. So just going back going one forward slide, we're really very fortunate to have support for this action. The Safe Routes Resource Center, they'll provide pre-screening of a policy. If your municipality wants to adopt one or update one and you want to get eyes on it to see if it's going to make, if it's going to be eligible for Sustainable Jersey points, if you allow some extra time for that, you can get the Safe Routes Resource Center to do a preview. So I definitely encourage you to take advantage of that. Next slide. The next action is the bike and pedestrian improvement action. So, we've seen a lot of great demonstration projects as well as permanent infrastructure improvements, and that's what we want to reward with this action. And we have two tiers: one if you put in a demonstration project, and one if you put a permanent project in. So the point structure relates to that. But what we did try in this action is to get back to that idea of advancing equity through our program, so that municipalities that install a temporary or permanent improvement that addresses a need that's found in one of their priority communities, and they're eligible for 5 additional points. Next slide. So if you're going for those extra points, then we'll be asking you some extra questions to just see how the project is addressing a priority community. Next slide. So the final action I want to talk about in our program that addresses complete and green streets is our green infrastructure implementation action. So if your municipality creates a green street, you can potentially get points in that bike and pedestrian improvement action, but you can also maybe get points in the green infrastructure implementation. If your project meets a long-term stormwater reduction goal, you could get points for both. And here's an example of a proposed project in Woodbridge Township, New Jersey. And it really is, demonstrating that sort of ideal of green infrastructure where you're managing the stormwater close to its source. So you have the impervious cover of the paved street, and right next to it, you have the rain garden that's picking up and managing that stormwater. Next slide. So again, support for our complete streets actions, our bike and pedestrian improvement actions, both in our municipal program, as well as the Sustainable Jersey for Schools program, comes from the folks at the Safe Routes Resource Center. And I really encourage you to reach out to them if you're interested in doing our actions. Next slide. So another thing I want to talk about is the Complete Streets Technical Assistance Program. Peter Bilton talked about this earlier today, and since 2018, through a partnership that's funded by the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority, Sustainable Jersey, and the Voorhees Transportation Center have provided technical assistance to 17 municipalities to advance a complete streets project in their municipality. And you can find those reports, those 17 reports, on any one of our organizations, but this is a page from the Bike and Pedestrian Resource Center. It shows all of the reports, and I just think that these reports are a really great resource for municipalities, because they identify a problem, they explore the problem, they provide some solutions to that problem, and sort of outline next steps. So no matter where you are in the state, I think these projects demonstrate a lot of the issues that municipalities are dealing with in terms of safety and how to address it. So I encourage you to check those out. Next slide. And as Pete mentioned earlier today, round 3 of the technical assistance is coming. So for municipalities in the NJTPA region, the round 3 will be announced soon. Next slide. So we really want to get you out in a day glow vest, looking at, how to make those safety improvements. So how can you get a day glow vest? Next slide. So we We'll announce the application for the technical assistance, and it'll be posted on the Sustainable Jersey website on December 6th. And you can go today using the handout and the links that I provided to register for one of 2 webinars that we'll be hosting to help you develop your application. So the first will be on December 9th, where we're going to discuss the type and scope of projects that can be supported by this technical assistance. And then on December 15th, we'll go through the application portal and how to apply. Those webinars will be recorded and posted on the Sustainable Jersey website. And the applications for the technical assistance will be due on February 11th. Next slide. So finally, my last suggestion for how to implement a project is in mid-November, Sustainable Jersey will be announcing our next round of funding with support from the PSE&G Foundation. And these funds are provided to municipalities that undertake an action in our program. So I mentioned those 3 actions. So ask for a capacity building grant of $2,000 to support the creation of a complete streets advisory committee in your town, or ask for $10,000 to help design and purchase materials for a complete streets demonstration project. There's lots of ideas that you can do, and I really encourage you to apply for the funding. So next slide. Here's my contact information. Thanks again for the opportunity to share some of these ideas. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back to Steve to moderate the question and answers.
Thanks, Ann. That was great. I mean, I think everyone's presentation really excellent, really provided a lot of information. And I know we answered a few questions in the chats, but we did have a couple of questions that came in during the registration process. So I'm going to go back to Candace, and the question is, you know, what are some best practices for ensuring all community members, especially those in you know, maybe disadvantaged communities, feel like, you know, all these complete and green streets projects are benefiting them?
Yes, that's a great question. I have a few ideas because there are many strategies, and it will depend on the project and the scenario. But one is, when asking for feedback, you want to be sure that you are planning meetings, public meetings. That's usually the go-to strategy at times where people are actually available to attend the meeting. So if you are asking for people who are not traditionally working a 9 to 5, you know, you may want to consider holding public meetings after 5 p.m. is just one example, or even on a weekend. You also want to look at the various mechanisms for which you are asking for feedback. So one is meetings, but there's also surveys and social media, and even knocking on doors is a way to get feedback. And you want to try to diversify those mechanisms as much as possible so that you're just not relying on one strategy. Also, you want to think about asking people what they think at the beginning of the process, not in the middle and not at the end. You want to be sure that you are meaningfully involving people, and the way that you do that is asking them early on and often, and look for key ways to incorporate the feedback that you get so that it's not just looked at as something that's being pacified, but something that you're actually implementing. And then I just say, look for opportunities to broaden your planning team as much as possible. So in terms of complete streets implementation, it's not just about your engineer, for example, but in terms of gentrification and the propensity that green and complete streets and bike lanes has to maybe create or perpetuate gentrification, which is a big issue for a lot of our communities. Maybe you want to involve your housing decision makers in those meetings as well, to think about the total picture of how you implement transportation projects, not just your engineering community. So those are just a few quick ideas. Yeah,
those are great. Those are really great. You know, while we're on the topic of community input, community outreach, you know, one of the other questions that came in, you know, is going back to, you know, the demonstration projects, and this is another question that came in. And maybe we'll go back to Keith and maybe Pete if he wants to chime in. Um, demonstration projects are a great way to get people out there and involved. But how do you get municipalities to buy in? Right, we heard that there's some cost involved, and certainly coordination with some of the municipal agencies. Keith, if you can, just talk a little bit more about the Keyport project and the coordination that you needed. I know in the beginning you wanted to recognize the people at Keyport, so just talk a little bit more about that.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I mean, the project with Keyport was, I talked about how the COVID experience had, forced us to take a different approach. And when we were able to connect with Keyport, we had a lot of meetings to kind of walk through some of the, it helps to think about what are some of the common roadblocks or points of conflict in municipal capital plans, right? So you have the budget and maintenance and priorities. So a lot of it was developing a communications plan around those types of challenging issues. And I think there are plenty of guidance documents out there, and many of them were mentioned today. But I think that with the demonstration project, the low cost nature of tactical urbanism, it kind of gives ordinary citizens or a project team like ours it gives an entry point into implementation. So you're like building around what are some easily attainable projects and goals. And I also think that in general, if it's not a project team, like with funding for technical assistance, and communities have a chance to kind of self-organize, and there's a lot of examples of that. If you look around the state, something like a traffic safety committee, I think that can go a long way as far as getting people together, getting organized, reaching out to different sectors of the community, and getting local leadership, as well as stand out for getting public grants. So I think those are a few kinds of ways to address the issue.
Pete, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, it reminded me. So last Saturday, Andras Holtzman and I went to an event in Patterson. It was called the Ride Out for Unity. It was organized by the police department in Patterson. They conducted a skills competition and a bike ride for about 100 teenagers in Patterson. And they also had the participation of an African-American cyclist group to provide mentoring. And this cyclist group was really stern. They made all the kids wear helmets, and this was held at a place that is a skate park, an urban skate park in Patterson. There's a lot of open land there, and we started thinking about this idea to create a BMX park there. It's considered a safe place because the police come there at night and fill out their reports. So just the community building and the good relationships between the bike club, the teenagers, and the police was really incredible. And the opportunity to make this space, which is sort of a derelict spot under I-80, by the way, which is scheduled for an $800 million renovation project. So maybe we can shake free some dollars and cents from the state to fund creating this park. But that event, organized by the police, and they brought in the mayor, some of the council folks, parks. It was really a good community building event. I just can't overstate how positive that was, because that's not my impression of what it's like to grow up in Patterson. So the more we can do those kind of things with our projects, the better.
Well said. So we're just about out of time, but I did want to thank the panelists for great presentations today. I learned a lot of new information. There's a lot of it that you shared today. So just as a reminder, all of our sessions are recorded and will be available after the summit on the New Jersey Bike Ped Resource Center YouTube channel. And also there are handouts that will also be available. So if you want to get the contact information for everybody, that's where you'll find it. And just in closing, I just want to say, you know, as you're going through your process of implementing complete streets and you're not really sure where to go, I think the one thing to take away from this is that you're not alone. And there are, you know, you don't have to do this on your own. There are all these resources that are available out there for you, either through the, you know, through the state, through DEP and DOT, the MPOs, and groups like and so you know, just remember that you're not alone and the resources are out there. Just ask where to find them and you'll find them. So with that, thank you everybody. Enjoy the call to action that's coming up in a little bit, and again, thank you to our panelists. Have a great day.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you. Take care.